This is the DTV Digest, the podcast that brings you news and reviews of films which didn't make it to the cinema. And now, here's your host, Mike Parkin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the DTV Digest, the podcast which brings you reviews of films which didn't make it to the cinema and instead went straight to DVD, Blu-ray, or streaming media. I'm your host, Mike Parkin, and joining me this week are Richard Hawes.
Hello, everybody.
And Stephen Lockridge.
Hello, everyone.
And this week we're going to be looking at our very first Nic Cage film of the year. I'm sure it's not going to be the last, called Willy'S Wonderland. Then we're going to look at the remake / reboot of Wrong Turn. Our short shot this week is called Hopkins. And then we're going to go with an incredible cast into the Grizzly Maze. So without further ado, let's crack on. Our first review then is Willy'S Wonderland. A stoic drifter gets waylaid in a small town and in order to get his car fixed has to work a night as a janitor at Willy'S Wonderland, a derelict family restaurant with animatronic animals. As the drifter works hard at cleaning up the place, it's about to unleash its dark secrets. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, I think right off the bat, guys, this is one of Nic Cage's best films for quite a while.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
It is very, very inventive. Oh, now let's cut to the chase. This is very much based on a sort of cultish video game called Five Nights at Freddy's. I say cultish because it wasn't released by any of the major sort of game companies. It was only available online through sort of very sort of dodgy pay sites and things. And funny enough, my son was very obsessed with everything about the game except the game itself. He never actually played the game, but he knew all about it. He watched all these YouTube videos about walkthroughs and all the rest of it. But he would never actually play the game. So when I got hold of this, I go, "Oh, Josh, I got a film that's based on Five Nights at Freddy's." He went, "No, I don't watch it." So the setup here is very similar to that game in that there's a sort of rundown restaurant with animatronic animals which come to life during the night. The reasons for that are, I'm sure, quite different to what the game was. And our sort of hero is very much different to anything any gamer could have dreamt up, because this is one of sort of Nic Cage's coolest characters. And he does it without saying a fucking word throughout the whole film. I was waiting for him to drop, even just one word at some point, but no, they stick to the guns and just keep him silent throughout, which I thought was a great move. This is just a lot of fun from start to finish. Steve, I know you were very keen to see this, so what did you think of the actual film?
I was slightly disappointed, to be fair, but I think what you enjoyed, I didn't, in a way.
Okay.
The Nicolas Cage thing, it annoyed me. What annoyed me about the film is there's no backstory to anyone really, especially Nicolas Cage. He drives into the town, gets his car busted up, has to work in this restaurant overnight, and that's it. There's no, why was he there? Why is he expecting this to happen? Because he just gets on with it, beats the shit out of some robots, and then carries on cleaning. It just didn't, what I mean? I wanted something a bit more, and I know it's just a little bit of batshit insanity and stuff like that, but there's, like you say, Five Nights at Freddy's, there's videos on YouTube that go into more fan theories than this had all the way through it.
Interesting. Okay. Rich, do you want to jump in at this point?
Yeah, I'll go back to Nicolas Cage's character, and I was surprised that, I wasn't sure whether we were going to actually mention whether he speaks or not in the film, because it's kind of a big thing. You're kind of waiting for like a big rant or a big something from him, and you just never get it. So it's what's interesting is that the film doesn't do what you think it's going to do. Yeah, and if anything, it's not the wild Cage performance that you might have expected in this setup.
Yeah.
And what you get is the opposite of that. And for me, that works really well because he was still, but he was
still Nic Cage. Yeah,
he was still Nic Cage. It's still weird, but he was underplaying it.
Mm.
And the more I thought about it afterwards, the more I thought, this is just like a fan theory kind of thing. But is he playing it? Is his or have they written that? Is the character supposed to be the coolest autistic person ever? Because he's non-verbal basically.
Yeah,
he's very rude.
Slave to his routine.
Slave to his routine, has a drink every time his alarm goes off and everything, and he's completely unfazed by anything bizarre that goes on, and he just goes back to what he's doing if whatever fits in his routine. So that was the sort of logic that I came up with for that. The other thing was without wishing to spoil it again, there's kind of, I think his character is also inspired by Western heroes. So he rides in at the start of the movie on, this is something that's been done in various other movies, but he basically rides in on his horse, on his Mustang or whatever it is that he's driving, and lands in a one horse town or whatever, that kind of thing. It's like a very small place. He's stuck there. And he gets into the situation and stuff. And I think that it plays with conventions and stuff quite nicely. It is. You've mentioned Five Nights at Freddy's. That was previously the touchstone for the Banana Splits movie, which was 2 years ago, which is, unfortunately I still haven't seen, but looks very similar. It's also kiddie, animatronic or people dress up in costumes, whatever it is, going crazy and killing people. So it's that juxtaposition of the kiddie stuff and the horror. And to an extent, the concept of this movie is basically Child's Play, but like multiplied. I thought it gets off. I mean, where else are you going to see Nicolas Cage beating the crap out of an animatronic ostrich? That price of admission alone for that. I think.
It is fun, but I just think I expected a bit more insanity. A bit more craziness. I don't know. It just didn't reach the heights that I wanted it to, in a way.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I think also they introduced the teen horror aspect, and they go in. And the whole thing is they basically get themselves killed to look up to try and save Nicolas Cage, and he doesn't care. He's not bothered about any of it, and so that's quite funny. So they know that they're like, oh no, we can't go in there, we'll get killed. And then they then do it.
There's that sort of like almost self-awareness that they're in a horror movie, but are sort of like stuck to actually following the constraints of a horror movie at the same time.
And I really liked the main, the final girl character. I really liked her. She was quite captivating. She's got these quite intense eyes and stuff to sort of, draw you into her character. When you meet her, you don't really know what's what. There's some revelations later. That was all nicely played. We got Beth Grant in there as the sheriff of the town. It was a great casting, for her. I mean, she's been around for a long time, and she's quite a mature lady. So it's a really tough. It's a tough old bird character, wishing to be sexist or anything, but she's got that. She's kind of like that Frances McDormand Fargo kind of character, but like gone off the deep end a bit.
It's that old staple which we talked about before, is sort of people doing evil things for the greater good, kind of thing. My favourite scene in the film actually was when Nic Cage is dancing while he's playing pinball. That was superb, and a great song with it as well. The one thing that did disappoint me a bit was the actual backstory for Willy's Wonderland. That's sort of like possessed creatures kind of thing. I was hoping for something a bit more sort of humanly evil, but it was like no.
So you think a bit more Child's Play remake rather than Child's Play original? It's like right at the beginning, when his car basically runs over these sort of road spikes
which have been left out. And he just sort of he's just waiting and waiting for someone to turn up, because he's, obviously those road spikes belong to somebody. Someone's going to come along, and I'm thinking, okay, this is obviously a scam set up by some guy, by the sort of road recovery garage to sort of get more custom, And I was really expecting Nicolas Cage to beat the shit out of this guy when he turned up. But he doesn't, he doesn't. Maybe I'm thinking maybe he hasn't put two and two together. And then it turns out the road spikes belong to the sheriff, because they're part of the police equipment. So maybe I'm thinking maybe they just left them out by accident after some high-speed chase or something. But and then of course you meet the guy who owns the place, and the fact they sort of lock him in and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I was sort of expecting it to be, them to be sort of the chief villains rather than what we actually get. So I was just sort of taken aback a little bit, going, okay. But other than that, I think this is superb. I think the way it's shot as well, so it's very colourful. Lots of lens flares. It's almost as if they got what's his face who did Star Trek,
J.J. Abrams
in there. There's a lot of lens flares, especially when he's playing pinball. But no, I just thought this was a lot of fun.
What do you think about the creatures, the animatronics themselves, and the way they're presented, as they're kind of run down and a bit naff looking, and people in costumes for the most part?
Yeah, I mean, the one that really sort of stands out is the fairy one. There's Sonic Susan, I think, or something like that. She's the one who sort of really stands out amongst them. I thought that was really creepy. The others are sort of like very sort of banana splitsy kind of fun costumes. But good sort of gory effects as well.
Yeah, did you enjoy the fight scenes? They were
really done well.
See, to me, they were kind of over a little bit quick. I expected a bit. This is what I mean. I expected more from it.
Well, the thing is, there's 8 characters. There's eight of these animatronic characters. So if you're going to draw out each fight, it's going to be the film's going to outstay its welcome. I think. So I think maybe some could have been longer than others, but but no, good fun. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It'd be interesting to sort of take the character or the characters and see what happens next, because they've established the fact that this is a sort of a world where the supernatural can exist. So what's next? They get to the next town. What's next? That would be really interesting. There you go.
I think this was a dream job for Cage, because he didn't have to learn any lines whatsoever, and it must have just been kind of a walk in the park for him to just have such a physical performance. And I think it really works myself. I think that's one of the great strengths, is that they don't need to give him dialogue, because his character was strong enough, novel enough to carry it in that sort of. I was trying to think of examples of, is there like a Western where the main Western hero never says anything? And there possibly is, but I couldn't come up with any examples. I'm sure there have been. I mean, Soldier with Kurt Russell is one I always think of as like a mute hero. But I mean, even he in that film does have a couple of lines.
The only one I can think of, it's not really Western, but there was Mute Witness.
But that's kind of established that she's mute.
I know.
A little bit different.
That's what I mean. A protagonist who doesn't speak at all.
Yeah, I was thinking like hero characters. I'm sure it must have been done, but I thought it was. I thought the whole film. I mean, the film itself is clearly made on quite a modest budget. It's got very limited locations and stuff, but there's like 3 locations. There's like exteriors. There's the inside of Willy's. There's the garage. That's basically it. Trailer park. Yeah. So those really. I thought they did a really good job, and it's it's like an hour and 20 minutes. I couldn't fault it. Very entertaining. Made me want to check out the Banana Smiths movie. I'm going to give it 8 out of 10.
I'm also going to give it an 8 out of 10. Even though, as I said, the backstory didn't quite grab me. Otherwise it might have scored a bit higher. But yeah, a solid 8 definitely. And
I'm going to go a 6. I did enjoy bits of it, but these just as a whole didn't quite gel with me.
2 8s and a 6 for Willy's Wonderland. Our next review is Wrong Turn. When 6 young hikers wander off the Appalachian Trail, they run afoul of a secluded community. Also known as 6 hipster yuppies get exactly what's coming to them. So this is a reboot, rehash of the idea, the concept behind the film, which originally starred Eliza Dushku and some guy I can't remember.
Desmond Harrington.
Oh, yeah.
2003.
I love that film, and that film started an obsession with me with the idea of what happens next to the final girl, because in the original version of Wrong Turn, there's a scene at the end where they turn up at the gas station where they took the wrong turn in the first place, and there's a map and they sort of tear it off the wall, and the look between the 2 characters who survived, you just need to look at them and go, yeah, these people have been through shit, they've seen stuff and come out the other side and sort of stronger and tougher for it. And it's like, well, what happens to them next? How are they going to sort of cope getting back into the world and all the rest of it? Anyway, that's a big diversion. A wrong turn.
A wrong turn.
Hey.
we got there. It was a long walk, but so this takes that sort of basic idea of sort of campers out in the in the wilds of America and running afoul of sort of the locals, shall we say, but it takes a very different route. In the original one, we had a group of sort of redneck inbred cannibals, basically, sort of murdering and eating anyone who got too close to them. This one has an actual community with an articulate leader and okay, sort of very primitive and barbaric rules and regulations, but they are rules and regulations that this community follows, and a lot of what happens in the film is basically the protagonist's fault. These fucking hikers, if they'd maybe had a bit more of an open mind to begin with, and actually did what people told them and stuck to the trail, instead of wandering off to find some stupid fort or something. And I've got sort of beef with that as well, because that particular character, is it Darius?
Yeah.
Black guy. He was fucking shady as hell when he's talking about, they get to a certain point and they're like, I think we're lost or something. And he's going, maybe you guys should go back and I'll go back. I'll carry on alone. And I'm thinking, why would you do that, Darius? What are you really here for? And I'm thinking, is someone sort of told him there's a weed farm out there or something that, but it just seemed really weird and dodgy at that point. But anyway, I digress. I really did enjoy this. I really did. It's directed by Mike P. Nelson, who also did another favorite of mine called The Domestics. Have either of you seen that one yet?
Yeah, we
the
talked
name
about
rings a bell.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite sort of post-apocalyptic Mad Max style films. It's really good, very violent as well as this is. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. I like the sort of directions this went in. Rich, what did you make of this remake, rehash?
Reboot, or whatever we're going to call it. Yeah, it took me really by surprise, because I was expecting that it would. I was expecting that it would be very similar to the original film, and possibly the share the concept of the 5 sequels, the 5 DTV sequels that followed it.
Yep.
And it really doesn't. It uses aspects as touchstones, so it's kind of one of those. It's kind of one of those remakes that does its own thing. So it's, yes, we've got a bunch of young people in the woods, falling afoul of a threat, and the sort of novel traps and things that they get caught in or whatever. But apart from that, it's completely different, and it's a much more mature film with a lot more to ponder and think about. I think when the film starts, it's not with the young people. I mean, the first film it was Desmond Harrington, and then he met up with the other younger people. But in this one, it's Matthew Modine, who's how old? I don't know, in his 50s or something. And we spent. Go on.
I think he's in his 60s.
Yeah, 60s. Yeah, I was thinking he must be quite old because he was young in the 80s, wasn't he? Yeah. But I mean, he's still got a young daughter in this. But so we spend quite a lot of time with him before we get. So he's looking for his daughter who's gone missing. Then we flash back or whatever and meet up with the young people. They arrive in town. They get a warning. It's a completely different concept because the central idea of the first one was literally taking a wrong turn, as in the way it's referred to in taking a wrong turn is in your vehicle. Yeah. In this one, they don't. It's completely. You could. The original title for the film was Wrong Turn, or one of them was Wrong Turn: The Foundation, and had they not wanted to, exploit the brand recognition of Wrong Turn, I think they should have just called it The Foundation. Would have made much more sense. Yeah. But because it's got those other elements from the original, I can kind of understand why they would have to sort of acknowledge it. And it goes on. It handles the material in a completely different way. As you say, it's all about once you get past the initial attacks, it's being taken into this community, being subject to them. There's trying to escape from that situation and dealing with it and dealing with their ideas. In between that, we're going back and forth with the father who's then on his own continuing his search, and things intersect at the end. It's a much longer involved story, and when I started to watch it, it was like an hour, 100 minutes, and I thought, wow, that's really long. Because the first one, one of the things you remember most is its brevity. It jumps
into it quite quick. It cuts all the bullshit. It's like, the car accident happens within 5 minutes, to get things going. Now, did either of you two flash back to Tucker and Dale versus Evil?
Yeah, this is again my argument. This is not one film. It's 5 different films in different pieces, slammed together. Again, I was quite excited to watch this. I thought it was going to be quite good. It's too long. It goes, like you say, it starts off with your standard yuppies walking through the jungle. Then it goes to like Tucker versus Dale. Then it goes to something like The Prisoner.
Or The Village, or...
The Village, something like that. And then into The Strangers at the end. It was just... I think they tried cramming too much in, and it was far too long. It looked great. I thought it was shot really well.
Yeah, and I think
performances were great.
Yeah, whoever was the location count for this film, the location scout for this film, I hope they bought him a decent pint after at the end of it, because he found some damn good, some scenery and all sorts.
Yeah,
for this one.
Do you know if it was supposed to be Virginia, the same as the first one?
Yeah, it was. It's set on the Appalachian Trail.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay.
So it's that side of the country, I believe.
So it could be that you could even say that, arguably, that they're taking place in the same universe, but just a different situation. So you could say that if you wanted to, but it's apart from that, it's, I say, quite tenuously, probably not. It's almost an in name only.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is. It's nothing. Well, I mean, I only saw the first one, to be fair, but it's nothing compared to that. Because, like you say, it's short, straight in. You know what you're getting. Slasher movie. Done, dusted. Your final girls, blah blah blah, all sorted. with this, you've got
many different layers. I know what you're saying about the multiple, throwing 5 different films. I completely get what you're saying there.
There is one area which I think is a bit of a plot hole. There's a brilliant set piece involving a tree log, which takes out one of them in quite grisly fashion. The first kill, basically. It's superb. When they sort of get to the sort of trial bit, and we get to that sort of Tucker and Dale versus evil kind of situation, where it's like a huge misunderstanding has led them to this point.
Yeah.
None of them sort of go, yeah, but what about the fucking log? That didn't roll down that hill by itself,
Yeah.
It's you sort of say that you're the injured party, but pretty sure you guys set that log off. But...
Yeah, well, we were hunting. I mean, again, the other plot hole for me as well is when some people finally escape from this village or whatever, and they're going through that tunnel with the not monsters in, but persecuted people in. How have they not found their way out of the same place? They've apparently been stuck in there for that long. But if they just, carried on feeling the wall a bit further, they'd have got out
and stumbled to their deaths, probably.
Yeah. But it just and the ending. This again, 2 different films in the last 5 minutes, and I know it's kind of like a dream sequence and a flashback. But again, another thing that annoys me about films is when it doesn't finish until halfway through the credits, if you know what I mean. Because I was tempted to, credits start rolling, right, hang on. I'd better watch this last little bit. And yeah, I had to, because it's...
I don't want to
too overblown.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil anything about that ending, but there's a certain character who's outside of when she comes outside, and there's like about 5 or 6 people outside the Winnebago, and there's a particular character who stands out, and presumably that person met a sort of sticky end, in that sort of final sequence, with absolutely no qualms at all, from the protagonist. It's like, okay, interesting.
I'm gone.
Was he there? No, I'm not. I'm pretty sure.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure you mean.
Right. Yeah, let's get a bit too spoilery, so I'm not going.
Yeah.
Go into that. Anyway.
Just to check. Did you continue watching when the credits were rolling?
Yes, that's what we're talking about.
Oh, okay. No, I just wanted. I wasn't sure.
Again, we'll maybe talk about that in a sec. Anyway, let's get on with the scores. So I thoroughly enjoyed this for the most part. I think it was a bit slow to get going, and that was the comparison I kept going back to, was the original film and how quickly that got to the point of these guys are in trouble. He meets up with sort of Liza Dushku and her family and stuff, and then they get to the farmhouse, and that's where it all starts going down. It's pretty quick in its storytelling. It sort of establishes the prejudices of the group, and it sort of tries to sort of give us a bit of backstory and that sort of thing. So perhaps we might care about them later on, but it did sort of like give it a bit of a jumpy start, I thought. But so overall, I'm giving this a 7 out of 10. Rich?
I have some reservations about the multi-faceted, the way it's been put together, like Steve was saying. But I thought it was a real pleasant surprise. I think if you've never seen the original, you'll get something out of it. Even if you've seen the original, you'll get something out of it. I think it'll be great. It'll be good to do a double bill with both of them. I actually rewatched the original Wrong Turn last night, and there's such completely different movies. Play it so differently that it's really interesting to see what they've done. This isn't a visual effects showcase for Stan Winston or anything like that. This is much more about the characters and the concepts and stuff. Basically we're finding a bunch of people who basically, it's like Lost, you know, the others in Lost. Is
Yeah.
that kind of thing or something. So I think there's enough that's really interesting about it. There's a sort of a curious way that it pays off at the end with playing some little tricks on us and stuff, which again, I sort of have some reservations, but yeah, 7 out of 10 I'd go for on that.
And Steve?
I'm going to go 6 again.
Okay. 2 6s? No, wrong. 1 6 and 2 7s. I can't add up now. Okay. Let me do that again. 2 7s and a 6 for Wrong Turn. Our short shot this week is Hopkins, following on from the film Commando Ninja. This finds Hopkins back stateside in 1978 in New York, hallucinating about Viet Cong roaming the alleyways. Or is he? ... So this follows on from another sort of film you can find on YouTube called Commando Ninja, which is about 1 hour 8 minutes, I believe it is, which in itself is a lot of fun, very well made. This is very much a pastiche of Taxi Driver.
Yep.
It's very much sort of riffing on the character of Max Cady. Not Max Cady. That's bloody.
That's Cape Fear.
Cape Fear.
Travis Bickle.
Travis Bickle, of course it is. Sorry, bloody De Niro. Stuck in my head. And you know, he's even got that sort of like the same sort of jacket that Travis wears, and the same sort of dialogue in his head. Yeah, I thought this was great fun, actually. You know, sort of really well done, very well lit. Yeah, you know, the dangerous streets of New York back in the 70s, it really sort of fit together. Rich, what do you make of this one?
Yeah, I thought it's interesting because the Commando Ninja's got lots of very it's a full-on kind of spoof. There's lots of upfront, you know, comical moments and jokes and stuff. And this, taking place in the same universe, is not that. It's very straight, very dark for the most part. There's humorous, darkly humorous elements, but it's tonally completely different, which was really interesting. I think the being a pastiche of Taxi Driver and to an extent the Exterminator and other sort of vigilante movies of that time was very well done. The film's unusual in that there's no not a lot of dialogue scenes, and most of it is a narration by Hopkins. So it's a montage of sequences of scenes and footage and of him going around and expressing his thoughts and feelings on various subjects. And so it's considering that's what it is for the most part. It's an 18-minute film about that, about 18 minutes. Considering the structure of it, I thought it was very well paced, very well handled, for not having any sort of real narrative momentum. It's more about his character than anything else, and you're just spending time with his character, and then a little bit of it being introduced to set up what will be Commando Ninja 2.
Steve, what do you think of this one?
I enjoyed it, actually. It was, like you say, it's very like a pastiche of Taxi Driver. You know, you've even got the in the mirror with the gunshot and everything like that. I wasn't aware that it was like a bridge between, was it something Ninja?
Commando Ninja, yeah.
Commando Ninja, yeah. I wasn't aware of that or anything. Just watched it on its own, standalone as it was, and yeah, I did like the narration aspect of it. I thought it was quite different and works very well. It was just the is he hallucinating? Isn't he hallucinating? And then the ending I thought was quite strange. Just when he kind of does, well, yeah, what he does, and then it just cuts to the car, on the road. You
see, that was an interesting bit, because if it wasn't for the fact it comes up at the end that, stay tuned for Commando Ninja 2, I would have thought that whole end bit was inside his head, and was him hallucinating. You know, the idea of getting back into the military and stuff. It's like,
yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah,
but like I say, I've not seen anything before or the sequel or whatever, so I just thought it'd stand alone.
Yeah. Rich, you sound like you were going to interject there.
No, I think, what was I going to say? Something about I was just curious about, because Steve hasn't seen Commando Ninja, he probably didn't realize that the production was French.
Yes, and being dubbed into English.
Yeah, and the only sort of giveaway to that really is the homeless bum character.
I did wonder what was going on there. It kind of looked like the words are matching. It just seemed a little bit out of sync, so I thought it might have been because I was streaming it from my phone to the TV. I couldn't, It was just
the guy who makes Benjamin Combs. I think say Commando Ninja was the original one, and the whole film is dubbed. So there's no American. So it's supposed to be an American movie, but it's everyone's dubbed accent. It's more like like an old Italian action,
like a Giallo or something.
Yeah, or something like that. Yeah, exactly. And what he did was he released different versions with different dub tracks, so they could because it was all based on dubbing, they could just make multiple versions, and the film feels the same, which was a clever sort of way to approach it. Whereas something like I think, did you watch Cyborg Deadly Machine?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that one was more typical, more made in a more typical style. And I thought they those two are quite interesting. They're very similar, and they sort of work well together. But this is such a left field kind of approach they've done it. There's going to be a comic book as well. I just heard a Commando Ninja comic all about the dinosaurs in Vietnam and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a universe that's very very interesting. We've got other cinema. I mean, look at the MCU. Some of the films are really, really silly, and others are really, really serious. So it's kind of Star Wars and whatever. They all do this kind of thing, and I think try and hear.
When you said dinosaurs, did you mean actual dinosaurs in Vietnam?
Yeah, dinosaurs in Vietnam. Yeah.
Well, okay.
That's how silly the first one. Because they fight velociraptors in the Viet as well as the Viet Cong.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Did we cover that on the show? I can't remember.
We did indeed. We did really like it. We just thought it went a step too far with the futuristic stuff at the end.
Yeah, I think that was before I joined, to be fair.
Okay, so we don't score the shorts, but we will put the link into the footnotes, and what the hell, we'll put it with the link for Commando Ninja in there as well. So that is Hopkins. Check it out. Our DTV throwback this week is Into the Grizzly Maze. Two estranged brothers reunite at their childhood home in the Alaskan wild and set out on a 2-day hike, but are stalked by an unrelenting grizzly bear. Okay, so this has got a cast to die for DTV. So we got James Marsden and
Thomas Jane.
Billy Bob Thornton.
Indeed. Piper Perabo, I was a big fan of Covert Affairs.
And Mr. Scott Glenn.
And Scott Glenn turning up as well. Yeah, absolutely superb. And it is a very handsome film. I think it's got really good production values. And the bear as well. They go, for the most part, if not all of it, they actually use a trained bear, don't they, for a lot of the
seems to, yeah.
Up to the end.
Yeah. That would be difficult to pull off. That would be difficult to pull off, to put that guy's head inside the bear's mouth and say, "No, bear, don't bite." Yeah. I know it's Billy Bob Thornton and he tastes nice, but don't do it. But anyway, I'm gonna trim that bit out. No, but so
Scott gone.
Yeah, this was great. It's been a while since I've seen it, admittedly. So you guys have seen it more recently. How did you find it, Steve?
I thought it was great. I really enjoyed this. You know, you've got your two estranged brothers coming back together to fight a common enemy. You know, obviously it's a bear, not like a gang of gangsters or anything this time. But I thought the production itself was really well shot. But I think it seems to be mainly all practical, apart from a couple of CGI scenes at the end, which weren't great, but didn't detract from the film itself. I thought the performance is brilliant. I do like James Marsden. I think he's very underrated.
Yeah.
To be fair, a lot of people think, oh, he's a boring Cyclops or whatever. But if you see him in stuff like Sex Drive, I'm sure he's in that. Playing the older brother, he's really funny, and I think he's really charming. I think he's, like I say, very underrated. Thomas Jane's just, again, quite understated in this one. He's not too overblown. Scott Glenn, it's just Scott Glenn basically. But
he's basically playing the same character he played in Firestorm.
Firestorm.
Yeah. And then you got Bill Bob Thornton, who again, a little bit like eccentric, but he's a bit of a dick, but he's not in a way because
he's right for the most part.
yeah. They've got the perceptions that you're a bit of a prick, mate. Just do one. We'll deal with this, and he comes through at the end, and he does know what he's on about. But yeah, it's one of them. I've not seen many pissed off angry bear films for a while, but no, I really enjoyed it.
So, who was the bear again in this one? Is it Barnaby or Barney the bear or something?
Bart the bear.
Bart, that's it. Yeah. Which is class, absolute class all the way through.
Yeah, so I was not. This wasn't one that I was particularly looking forward to. Partly because the title kind of put me off, Into the Grizzly Maze or whatever. I've seen it around. I've had it, I've come across it multiple times. The poster never grabbed me, but again, I was really very pleasantly surprised. It's a much higher quality production than I'd expected, although I obviously saw that it had good cast in it. But, the locations and everything are great. But what pulled me in at the beginning was Bart the Bear gets credited at the start of the film. So it said with Bart the Bear. And I'm initially thinking, Bart the Bear? Flipping heck. I mean, he's been around since the 80s. And I'd just watched The Great Outdoors recently, which was one of his first films, and then he was later in he was in like The Edge with Anthony Hopkins and all that sort of stuff. He's one of the most well known. Now because I was thinking he must be really, really old. Well, what the truth is that this is Bart the Bear 2. So Bart the Bear died in 2000, and another bear, might be a different breed, different type of bear. The original Bart the Bear was a Kodiak. He was born in 2000, so he was. This film was shot in 2012, so he would have been 12 years old at the time. And so what they've done is he was originally called Bart the Bear 2. They've now said, well, enough time has gone by. We're just going to call him Bart the Bear, and so that was quite funny because Billy Bob Thornton was in On Deadly Ground, which had Bart the Bear in it, and now Billy Bob Thornton's in this with Bart the Bear 2, who's not his son. He's a cousin of the original Bart the Bear. So I like that. Bart the Bear's great. All his scenes are brilliant. It takes it to another. I mean, let's consider this next to Rogue that we watched recently, or Prey. The Dick Master film. A CGI creature is kind of a CGI animal is what it's at, where it's at now. That's what it's generally done. To see an actual animal performer in the film just really elevates it, and it makes it feel much more intense. There's as you say, a lot of the effects, which are pretty gruesome at times. I mean, it starts out with massacred bear limbs and stuff, and then it's like the bear attacking people, obviously those scenes, which are all really well done. The film is directed by David Hackle, who started off with Saw 5, and has done things like Life on the Line as well.
Yeah, which you covered.
So, which was also a quite well cast ensemble kind of thing.
Yeah. His next film as well, which is called Dangerous, which is in post-production, I believe, also has a very good cast. I mean, say what you will, what your feelings are about Mel Gibson, but you also got Famke Janssen, Kevin Durand in there, Tyrese Gibson, Scott Eastwood.
That's really good.
Pretty decent, yeah.
Yeah, and this one is, I mean, Saw 5 was not one of the best looking of the Saw films. It was quite cheap looking, grimy. It didn't have a great aesthetic. I mean, they're all sort of gritty and grimy or whatever, but that one looked particularly rough. But this is beautifully shot. The kind of wilderness setting. I thought it was funny that we selected or randomly selected this film to go with the previous two, but it's got similarities to both. I mean, you got the wrong turn kind of dangerous outdoors kind of setting, and then also we've got a mute character in there as well.
Piper Bravo is really good in this as well.
So the wilderness adventure, it starts out kind of full horror, and then it kind of becomes more wilderness adventure. But I didn't really mind that transition, and the fact that the CGI is so restrained and only used for sort of enhancements. So, like for example, the bear's bitten someone, so we see the real bear, but they've CGI'd some blood onto him and stuff like that. That's kind of fair enough. But then they have to have a big bear attack moment right at the end, so they go full CG, which looks a bit naff, and the whole ring of fire and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's. You got to have a big ending. I mean, that's quite funny as well, because Firestorm.
That was just one letdown, wasn't it? That the Firestorm at the end kind of thing.
Yeah, it's kind of that. That feels tonally different in terms of the way, because you've had this such realistic kind of setting and location or whatever, and then everything goes a bit artificial. And they kind of do the same thing here and it's also got Scott Glenn, who's basically playing the same character that he did in that movie. And so there's so funny. This was originally called Red Machine. That was the original title, unusually.
Yeah.
And it's still known as that in some territories. It was shot in 2012, but not released until 2015 because it's an independent film. I think it got handed around a bit before it eventually came out. And I think probably it flies under most people's radar. I mean, I was aware of it, but hadn't really bothered with it. I don't think a lot of people have probably seen it, but it's well worth seeing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
I think, like you say, I think the strangeness of the name kind of puts you off it. But once you watch it, the name does make sense, and it's
well placed. I mean, it's about 90 minutes long, isn't it? It's kind of off and running straight away, and there's some nice character development bits along the way. But you're never far from the next action or horror, sort of intense scene. It's really good, really well done.
Yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it. So that is Into the Grizzly Maze. It's available on Amazon Prime. So if you're a member, check it out. We'll put a trailer into the footnotes, as we usually do, as well as the trailers for the other films that we've covered this evening, as well as Hopkins. We'll put the full film in there as well. So thank you for listening. Thank you to Rich and Steve for joining me this evening.
No problem. Always a pleasure.
Absolutely. And
happy days, guys.
Indeed. And we shall see you again soon.
Thank you for listening to the DTV Digest. Let us know your thoughts in the comments and tune in again next time.